In today's episode, we're going to discuss social anxiety, why it takes over so easily, and what you can do to feel a little more in control. Social anxiety is a really strange experience that a lot of people have. You walk into a room, maybe a small gathering, maybe a bigger event, and suddenly your mind just starts getting out of control. You're thinking about what to say, when to say it, whether you're coming off weird, whether you should speak now or wait. You're watching everyone else interact like it's this seamless dance, and you're stuck trying to figure out where to step in without bothering anyone. And here's the part that makes it worse: you know you're overthinking it. You know it shouldn't feel this hard. But that doesn't help, the thoughts keep coming. Even if you manage to push them down long enough to participate, it still feels very unnatural and awkward. So that's what we're talking about today. Not just what social anxiety is, but why it doesn't go away when you tell yourself to relax, why it doesn't work to just be confident, and why all the logic and analysis you've tried probably haven't helped. What you need to understand is that social anxiety isn't something you can think your way out of. It's not just a problem in your thoughts, it's a pattern in your system. And once you understand how that system works, you can finally stop fighting it and start working with it. Let's start here. Most people who struggle with social anxiety are actually incredibly self-aware. They know they're thinking too much. They know they're rehearsing, editing, anticipating. And they've probably read a dozen articles or watched videos on what to say, how to carry themselves, how to stop caring so much. But none of that makes it stop, because the core issue isn't that you don't know what to do. It's that you're trapped in a loop between two systems in your brain. One part is your cognitive system, the part that tries to think its way through everything. It tries to read the room, find the right words, and figure out what others are thinking. It also tries to figure out if you've said too much or not enough. Then there's the other part, your emotional regulation system, centered in the amygdala. That's where your fear comes from. It's the part of your brain that says, this could go wrong. You might get judged. You're not safe here. So what happens in social anxiety is that your analytical brain starts spinning up solutions, and your emotional brain responds with threat signals. And you're stuck in the middle, trying to outthink that fear. But the problem is that every time you try to solve anxiety with more thought, you're only giving even more fuel to that loop. You start believing that if you just had the right words, or the perfect timing, or enough practice in your head, then the anxiety would go away. But the more you analyze, the more anxious you feel, because now you're not just worried about other people, you're also constantly monitoring yourself. At that point, socializing stops being spontaneous, it becomes a performance. And that performance is, of course, mentally exhausting. So once you're stuck in that loop, trapped between overthinking and fear, you start to pull away from your surroundings, the very thing that could actually calm your system. When you feel socially anxious, your first instinct is usually to withdraw. Maybe not completely, maybe you're still standing there, nodding, pretending to be present. But internally, you've disconnected. You're not really seeing the people around you, you're not reading their faces or their body language. You're looking at your phone, you're rehearsing your lines, you're staying locked inside your own head. And this is where something really important gets missed, because your brain has systems designed to help you feel safe in social settings. There's literally a part of your brain, the visual association cortex, that interprets emotional meaning from what you see. So when someone smiles at you, or turns their body slightly towards you, or makes brief eye contact, those tiny signals get picked up and interpreted as, hey, you're welcome here. But if you never look up, if your eyes are glued to the floor, or the wall, or your phone, then those signals never make it in. That whole safety system stays offline. So now you're in a room full of people who might be open, friendly, even excited to talk to you, but your brain doesn't know that, because it's still stuck operating off fear and imagination, not reality. And here's the crazy thing, even if someone does smile at you or invite you in, you might miss it because your nervous system was too busy bracing for rejection to even register acceptance. So if we want to start rewiring that anxiety, not just coping with it, but actually changing it, we have to do something really counterintuitive, stop looking inward for safety and start letting the outside world in. That starts with something simple, just looking up. Now let's talk about something most people try. Especially if you've dealt with social anxiety for a long time, you've probably developed this habit of trying to talk yourself down in the middle of an anxious moment. You've probably told yourself things like, "It's fine. I'm overreacting. Nobody's even paying attention to me." And while that sounds helpful, it usually doesn't do much. Because here's the problem, your anxious brain doesn't trust logic, not in the moment. It's not looking for a rational explanation, it's looking for evidence that you're actually safe. And that evidence doesn't come from inside your thoughts, it comes from what you perceive. So when someone smiles at you, when you hear a friendly tone of voice, when someone turns their body slightly to include you in the group, those are signals your brain understands as, "You're okay here." But when you're stuck inside your head trying to rationalize your way through it, your brain just keeps spinning because there's no new information. You're running a feedback loop with zero outside input. So instead of relying on internal reassurance, what we really need to do is start tuning into external cues. Ask yourself, what do I see? What are people's faces saying? What's the tone in the room? Is there a signal I can pick up that tells me I'm not being rejected? That kind of perception is what starts to build real safety, not just an idea of safety, not just a pep talk, but something your brain can actually feel. Now let's shift from thought and perception to something even more primal, your body. Because one of the most overlooked tools for managing social anxiety is posture. And this is not about standing tall to look confident, it's not about faking dominance or trying to appear alpha. It's about sending a message back to your nervous system. Here's how it works: when your body is hunched, when your shoulders are pulled in, and when your gaze is low, your brain interprets that as a threat response. It assumes something is wrong, that you're hiding, that you're under pressure. But when you gently open your chest, roll your shoulders back, lift your head just slightly, that tells your system, "Hey, I think we're okay." And this isn't just psychological, it's physiological. Because when you stand or sit more openly, you're also giving your lungs more room. You're breathing deeper, especially on the exhale. And long exhalations help calm the sympathetic nervous system, the one responsible for your fight or flight response. So here's a simple exercise: before walking into a social setting, pause for just a second. Imagine cracking a small egg between your shoulder blades, just enough to gently roll them back. Take one deep breath in and exhale slowly. Once your posture shifts, your mind can follow, not because the situation changed, but because you changed how your system was interpreting it. So once your body starts to relax, even just a little, what do you do next? For most people, this is where things get tricky, because as your body opens up, your awareness starts to return, and suddenly you realize you're surrounded by people. And that makes eye contact feel like the last thing you want to do. It can feel exposing, like if you look someone in the eyes, they'll see how nervous you are, or how awkward you feel, or that you don't belong. But here's the thing, avoiding eye contact doesn't just hide you from other people, it, more importantly, hides other people from you. And when your brain can't read the faces around you, it has no choice but to fill in the blanks with worst-case scenarios. So let's rethink eye contact as a way of collecting information, a way to check in with your surroundings and give your brain the data it needs to feel a little safer. Start small. You don't need to stare. You don't need to maintain long stretches of visual contact. 1 second is enough. If someone is speaking in a group, glance at their face for a second or two. If you're in a one-on-one conversation, try angling your body slightly so it doesn't feel so intense, and just let your gaze meet theirs once in a while. What you're doing in that moment isn't trying to be charismatic or confident, you're just letting your brain see something real, a raised eyebrow, a relaxed smile, or a subtle nod. These are all signals your nervous system can interpret, but only if you give it the chance to look. Smiling is another thing you can do that sounds extremely simple but actually changes everything. Smiling is effective not because it makes you look friendly, not because it tricks people into liking you, but because it triggers a shift both in you and in the people around you. When you smile at someone, even for just a second, it usually creates